Hi everyone, happy Thursday and welcome back to Real Talk. My name is Vivian, I'm a DJ and producer. I go by Star Eyes, and every week here on the NI Instagram, I talk to a different artist, producer, or engineer to get you some tips and tricks and some inspiration for all of you who are making music out there at home. I'm really thrilled today to have as my guest Daniel Meyer, who has gone under many aliases. Some of you may know him as a founding member of the 90s industrial acts, Hajab and Covenant. He also records really dope dark techno and electro as Liebknecht, Rendered, Architect, and the list goes on and on. He's remixed Nitzer Ebb, Depeche Mode, Front 242, Frontline Assembly, and so many more. And today we're going to be having a look at some brand new remixes of his. One that's out now on this great label called Aufnahme and Wiedergabe. That's a Black Asteroid remix. And another one that's not even out yet. So really excited to go through those projects. Ready and welcome to Real Talk. Also, while we get Daniel in here, hey, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Are you calling in from Leipzig, the gothest place in Germany?
Exactly, yeah. Wait, let me turn up the volume. Yeah, it's loud. Yeah, I am. It's actually pretty grim right now. It's like the weather is changing every 10 minutes from like snow to rain, and it's just gray and miserable. I don't like it.
That help with the cold, dark industrial techno?
No, not me. I personally prefer to travel when I write music. I work like the best in hotels and on trains, actually.
Wow.
But like everyone else, I'm stuck for a year now at home, and I was kind of miserable for a while. But since November, I got my groove back, and I work a lot. Yeah.
Are you in a home studio right now that we can have a look at?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Do you
Should I show it to you now, or
show us what you've got there?
Okay, wow, well, it's like there, like this. So, well, I set up I have this little light there right now. So basically, I prepared the tracks right now. I work with Studio One. This is my main DAW. This is a program from Presonus. I have a little Dave Smith synth here for bass lines and stuff. This is my little sound card. I just got it like a few months ago, and it works pretty well. My main speakers are the Focal, and I used to work with the M Audio, not M Audio, the Adam Audio, and nothing is really set up. It's a modal synth, Argonate, a little mixer that I just got because I have a lot of outboard gear that I didn't set up yet. I'm a little lazy because I mostly work in the box. Yeah, and I have a little Pioneer thing to practice DJing, which is very convenient. It actually helps me a lot because I go every like couple of months to Berlin to DJ at Reverb Berlin. I don't know if you heard about this. It's a pretty fun thing. I actually go next week also to do a set for Philipp Strobel for Aufnahme und Wiedergabe.
Or the online radio?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's fun, yeah.
So, I mean, you've been making music since like 92 and kind of in this realm of like even pioneering the sort of industrial techno and EBM influenced techno that we're hearing a lot of right now.
Yeah.
How did what kind of stuff did you like take with you from? I imagine that it was a lot more hardware oriented.
Yeah. I mean, it was only hardware oriented. We actually didn't have a computer until the late 90s. We started off, actually me and Dejan, we started off in 91 with, I had an SY55 from Yamaha, which was like a synth sequencer kind of thing. I think it was an FM synth, or like a digital synth, not very sexy, but it did the job. They had a drum machine from Alesis, I think, the SR16 or something like that. And then we met Björn, who actually had a little bit of money, and he had an Emax 2, which was a very good sampler at the time. And then I got hands on a Juno 106 from Roland's, a perfect synth that I still own. It's a great synth for bass lines and sequences and stuff like that. So everything was actually hardware based. We recorded straight to that machine. Even the vocals, everything was straight recorded live, basically. And I think the first computer I had was in, I think it was 98 or 99, pretty late.
Will you use anything today that's like an emulation of either gear or techniques that, and today I mean like now in your music, that's like an emulation of gear or techniques that you would have done back then when it was all hardware? Or are you more
I mean, I basically use the same sample techniques. I'm a sample nerd. I used to sample a lot back then. I still sample a lot. Back then, I didn't know how to use Björn's gear. I had it for a while, but I only used what he programmed into it. And then I think in '95, I got my first Akai sampler. And I still use the Akai MPC Live for my live shows, which is, it's perfect. But I mostly work in the box, and in the box I work with the Roland Cloud machines. I have the Juno 106, I use the 909, the 808. And I use actually a lot the Contact sampler from Native Instruments, which is a perfect machine for me. It's got a lot of stuff that I love, and yeah, so I use a lot of emulations of old stuff.
Cool. Well, I know you've got two remixes that we're gonna see the project files.
Yes.
One that's already out for Black Asteroid Dust, and one that is not out quite yet, which I'm very excited to see. So what do you want to start off with?
Well, I want to start off with the Black Asteroid remix, which was kind of a task for me because I'm very, very slow. And I had to finish the mix in like a week or so because I got the opportunity to be on the vinyl, and they needed the mix. It was planned to have the mix only on the digital as a bonus. And then I was told that it got pushed up to be on the vinyl, so I had to finish it in like a week so that Thomas P. Heckman could master it for the vinyl. So I was really happy to do this, and I'm a big fan of Brian Black, who is Black Asteroid. I actually introduced him to Philip. We were on tour together in the States, and I met up with Brian, and we went for pizza or something like that in Brooklyn. And so Philip and Brian got to know each other, and that's how this whole thing started, I guess. Yeah, so let me show you what I have. Let me switch the thing. So this is, how did I do this? Yeah, like this. So this is Studio One, my project files. Let me play you the original a little bit. It's a very fast 134 banger. Let me see. Is the volume okay, or louder, lower? How do you want it? It's good?
It could be louder.
Okay. Like that?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So it's very heavy, very fast, and then there's these breaks in between with like crazy noises. I love this. I love this part. That's how I actually, now, I love it. Yeah, so I slowed it down a little bit because I don't really know why. I think I just wanted to make it my own. So now from 134, it's down to 130. And I actually used a lot of his original material, which I usually never do. I used the main bass line, which I just sent through a trigger thing that is actually free. It's a free tool from A1 Audio, Alex Hilton. And so I had this groove, and I decided to just concentrate on this groove and make the bass line follow this groove. So which is like, let's listen to like this. And I did, before this, I did an EP on Mechatronica, which is like an electro, old school kind of label. And I wanted to try to combine the vibe. Let me turn this. I wanted to try to combine the vibe of that release, which is more like old school electro, with the EBM feel, you know, of the older Liebknecht stuff, because I thought it was fitting to that sound of Black Asteroid and to the sound of the label, because I think every label has a specific kind of sound, even though Aufnahmewiedergabe is very diverse. He does a lot of also darker gothic kind of stuff, which I love also. But this, I wanted to show off my techno side for Liebknecht. And I actually work with a friend of mine, Rinaldo, and I sent him the track, and he came up with some FM sound bases that I just cut up. Let me turn again and show you. Should I go closer, or is it okay like this?
Yeah, maybe you want to go a little closer and like kind of let individual stems, like maybe.
So Rinaldo sent me. Let me go single. Sent me this, and I just cut it up. The M sounds. It was like a 60-note bass line, the original, and I just cut it up so that it fits the groove of the original. That I let me play you the original, like so. So just so you hear what Rinaldo sent me, it sounds like this. And he does it with, that was done with the Evolver, with the desktop synth, which is also a fantastic synth. So yeah, so I cut this up, and this was basically the bass line I wanted to use. I really liked the stuff that J-Jotronic did. I don't know if you know this one. He also uses like a lot of FM synths. Yeah, so should I play some more, or yeah, this is the electro part that I wanted to incorporate to build a bridge of the Mechatronica stuff and the EBM stuff that I did before.
So when you're doing, like, you have so many different aliases, but like, for instance, I'm going to butcher this word, like the Liebknecht stuff, do you kind of have a palette that you're choosing, or is it more just like you're going for a certain vibe, but you could use any instruments to do that? Or are you narrowing it down to like, you know, it's a combo of these things that are making that?
Well, with Liebknecht, it's reduced to certain kind of elements, because it's, I wanted to achieve a certain sound. I wanted to more break into the techno scene with this project. So I stay away from certain lead sounds, certain pad sounds that I would use for Howjob, for example, or for Architect. I actually stay away from a lot of lead sounds because I hate these super saw lead sounds, the I don't know, the virus sounds, you know. And Rinaldo is an analog nerd. He has a lot of hardware that he he only uses hardware. He doesn't use a computer, which is sometimes a little hard for me because I need to chop up all like everything he does. But he has like a lot of Electron stuff. I think he has almost everything from Electron except for the distortion pedal. And he has the evolver. He has also the Organ 8 from Modal. So he has a lot of stuff that he uses, and sometimes I just look for a specific sound and then I ask him to do it, and he just sends it to me like an hour later or something like that. So it's pretty convenient that I know good people and I work with good people. So it's also for certain projects I work with certain people. For example, for Architect, I just started to work with a Micronaut, which is he does more like a breakbeat, tech house, techno kind of stuff. Yeah, so I have a specific palette for certain projects.
What kind of effects are you using on this particular remix? Is there anything that you're using a lot of, or anything that you distorted from the original?
Yeah, I actually use for that original bass line, I used the trigger thing. Let me show you. I used that trigger thing. I used the thermal from Output. I don't know if you know this.
This one. Or for people who don't know about what the trigger
this is the trigger is basically like a gate that you can program to. Let me go back here and solo this. And I have my little 16th note that I usually start from. So you can make sequences out of cat sounds, everything. It comes with a lot of projects, and it's free, which is really awesome. Then I use the thermal stuff to make it a little more high-end, a little just distorted. And then just EQ and a little sidechain thing. For sidechain, I use, like I think everyone else, this Waves Factory thing called Track Spacer, which is perfect for sidechaining. And then I just I like a lot the Twangstrom. Is it called Twangstrom? I just got it actually from the Native Instruments store. They had a special deal for, I think it was 29 euros or something like that, which is a very, very nice spring reverb effect. Let me see where I used it. I think I used it on the snare. Solo it. Yeah, I used it on the snare to make this, I don't know if you hear this kind of spring reverb kind of sound. I love this. And then what I use a lot, which is not in this project, which is crazy, I use a lot the replica XT from Native Instruments. This one, which is also a very good multi-effects unit. Let me see what I used it for. I think I used it for vocals. It's on the bus. I don't know what I used it for, but it's in there somewhere. Yeah. Okay, let me turn it around again. Yeah. So I use actually this replica XT. I use a lot because it. I usually start from a preset from another artist. The replica XT has a lot of presets from cool artists that I really like. From Chris Shaw, from Funkstörung, and Richard Devine, who is everywhere, of course. So wherever I go, he's there. Whenever I buy a new plugin, Richard did some presets for it, and I know that when I start from one of his presets, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be cool. So I love all this stuff, actually. Yeah.
Are there particular elements in the track that you find yourself using the replica on more so?
Usually it's drum sounds, because sometimes they're just because I sample a lot, sometimes they're just boring, and I wanted to, not boring. I wouldn't sample it if they're boring, but I wanted to make it sound different than the original. I love the original sound, like the snare I got from the J-Tronic sample library. But I wanted to make it sound different, so I used the XT just to twist it so that it gets a different color in the end.
What
yeah.
Juan, who is in the chat, wanted to know if you also mix within Studio One, or do you use a different DAW or different software when you're?
No, I use with Studio One. When I work with other bands, I use other DAWs. I use Logic, but only they want me to. I really like Studio One. I also use Bitwig to make some more experimental kind of stuff, but I have not much time to actually work with it, so I'm basically stuck on the DAW on Studio One right now. Yeah.
Before we get into the second remix, can you talk a little bit about like what your approach is when someone asks you for a remix? Like, what do you have any rules or anything you usually like? If there's a vocal, you're definitely going to use it, or like, I mean, I know Carl Craig has said before that he will write a whole new track if he doesn't like the stems that someone gave him. Like, what's your creative process when you get those stems?
Well, I have to listen to the track and I have to like it before I do a remix. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Sometimes I can't work with the vocals. For example, I had a hard time with working with the Aesthetic Perfection vocals because they are very specific, and the track is actually kind of a nu metal track, and the vocals are very sustained. You know, like there was not much room to work with, and it was very hard to incorporate that into a techno track. And I was actually about to give up because I really had a hard time. And then I worked with a vocoder kind of thing, and I got it to work in the end. And it's going to be premiered here, that track. It was never showed to a public audience before, I guess. So it's kind of exciting. Yeah, so it's always like a different approach, because sometimes a band asks me to do a remix under a specific moniker, or some songs don't fit this project or this project. For example, I'm also working on a remix for Assemblage 23, which is a band from, I think, originally from Seattle or from Chicago. Then he was in Seattle, now he's in Boston. And I wouldn't do this kind of remix anymore because he's a friend of mine. The track means a lot to me because I remixed this track 21 years ago already, and we are in a similar kind of situation that I'm right now that he was in back then. So normally I would have not done it because it's too far away from what I do right now. It's very synth pop goth-ish, and right now I'm more into techno kind of stuff. But I agreed because I like this guy. He's a good friend, and the track means a lot to me. So that's why I'm doing actually my own version of it. I totally stripped it down to just the piano, and I'm going to sing also myself, which is going to be quite an experience. I didn't sing for a while. Yeah, but for the Aesthetic Perfection remix, I actually I wanted to keep because he asked for a Liebknecht remix because he really liked the album and the recent stuff I did, and I wanted to keep it in the same vibe as the Black Asteroid remix.
All right, well, let's hear a little bit of it.
Okay, let me play you the original first.
So if you just tuned in, I'm here with Daniel Meyer of Hajab, Covenant, Liebknecht, Rendered, Architect, and the list is on this brand new remix forthcoming
Yeah, so this is the Liebknecht remix for now. Now we listen first to actually this is also I use Traktor to DJ a lot, but it's frowned upon right now to DJ with computers, I guess. So I switched to USB sticks, which is kind of ridiculous, but okay, whatever. So this is the original. I just play you a few snippets because it's not out yet. It's going to be released in May. He just released a single today. So this track is called Gravity. Let's just, yeah. Let's go in the chorus. Okay, I don't want to reveal too much of the remix. So that was really hard because the vocals are very specific. So what I did is, it's going to be a mess. You see, the gray stuff is all muted. So the white stuff is the vocals. So what I did is I used a vocoder to make it sound robotic, actually. And in the chorus, I made the vocals open up. To make it just a little. Yeah. So it sounds like this. Let's go a little further. Yeah, so luckily, I also, wait a second, okay. I also got, for this remix, I also had only 1 week because he had a deadline to fulfill. And I just got the body mechanic sample library from Native Instruments, which came in very, very handy because I needed an idea to do this. And this library was perfect because it's exactly this. It's like it has the FM bass lines. It has beats and stuff like that. So let me show you what I used. For the bass, I actually used the Massive Synth. Let me show you.
So this is from, you guys don't know, and I just released like last week a new extensions pack called Body Mechanic that has a EBM industrial techno type sounds into it. So it's really cool that you were able to use some of these on this.
Yeah, I got really lucky that it came out just at the right moments. But like I said, I used the Massive for the bass. I think this is also from the original sound was from the Body Electric library, Body Mechanic library. It's called Knock It, and I just twisted it a little to make it sound more like me. It's really good. And I used the FM8 to give it a little more depth. So there's actually 3 sounds overall. This is the FM8. You can't really hear it in combined, but it makes sense when it's all together. This is a sample actually. Also very nice sound. And for the chorus bass, I also to make it sound a little more like my current stuff, the electro stuff, I used a J-Jotronic bass sound, and I used very high resonance to achieve this old school kind of bass sound. Let me show you the sound. Ah, come on. Sorry, I have the the phone in front of my face. So let me single this out. Show you. So the Studio One has an inbuilt sampler as well, which I use quite often. So I just put the sound in and used a lot of. This is the sound without the filter, and with a filter with a high resonance, and I played with the envelope, so there's a little variation. Yeah, so this is that. And for the drum sounds, I used actually a lot of the body electric stuff. Body mechanic, sorry. Why body electric? I think that's a Sisters of Mercy album, right? Yeah, so I used the snare from that library called Fleischkraft. But like you see, I didn't use all the notes. I muted some of the sounds and made it shorter. And I think I didn't use any effects in it. No effects showed. It's straight. It's a straight sample. Just edited some parts. And then I used another snare from that library called Cured, which actually this was supposed to be the main sound for the drums. I wanted to make it kind of like stand out, and I used. Let me have a look what I used for this. I used also a Native Instruments reverb, the RC24 or soft tube, but it comes with a Native Instruments complete. So without the reverb, it just sounds the same. Okay. And this one, wait. Yeah, it sounds the same. Okay, whatever. And then I used. Wait a second. Where is it? In the beginning, I think I used. Yeah, this kick. It's also from that library. It's called Kick Refurbished. So this is the initial loop that the song starts with. This is how it starts. I wanted that electro feel kind of, and to achieve that that sound. So the original sounds like this. This is the kick from the library, and then I added the reverb and the freak thing to achieve that resonance, you know. I just play around with it a lot, and in the end, this comes. So it goes from this to this, which I really like. It's a very specific sound. Yeah. Okay. So okay, that's me. Yeah, that's me. Hi.
So how did you? At what point did the vocal come in the remix? Like, I know you were saying that it took a while to kind of figure out where it was going to go. Did you just write the whole track first and then deal with the vocals at the end? Or were you like thinking about, okay, the vocals are in this key, so like I need to write a track in this key? Like basically where did the vocals come into the equation?
I actually wanted to. First, I didn't want to use the vocals at all, but since there was not much more than the vocals and the guitars, I had to use it. And then I decided, because the Black Asteroid remix was also only one note, that I wanted to keep it also on one note, this remix. So I had to put the vocals down to one note. So that's why I decided to use the vocoder. First, I tried distortion. I tried just cutting it up in a certain way, but it doesn't, it never really fit. And then I used the vocoder, and then it clicked. I actually, after the third day, I actually tried to do another approach and make it like another remix with more like a melodic techno kind of thing, but I actually hated it. So I went back to this, and when I used the vocoder and it was staying on the one note, it actually fit the remix. But usually I try to incorporate the vocals in the original fashion.
I know that you said that you're more interested in doing kind of techno sounding stuff nowadays versus maybe more 90s like or even 80s like EBM sound or like more like classic goth industrial sound. What can you tell me about, I mean, I think a lot of people are going the other way where they're maybe weren't around in the peak of, you know, EBM and like are trying to sound like that. What can you tell me about the ways that those two genres, like imagine like a classic like Nitzer Ebb song or like a classic EBM song and current industrial techno song, what are the differences in the engineering between those two genres?
That's a good question. The thing is that when I first started, I wanted to sound like all of this, you know. I wanted to sound, it was 91, 92. We wanted to sound like Skinny Puppy, like Nitzrap, like Leather Strip, like our heroes, you know. And we basically copied what we liked just to achieve that sound. And now, of course, the kids that they copy what they like and what they or kids, people, musicians, whatever. But there are a few people that actually know how to make that sound their own, like Ancient Methods or Face Fatale. You know, they have their own twist on that old school sound. And I heard today a Pablo Bozzi track, which is also fantastic, which is kind of this Italian disco thing, which I also really liked back then. So I think you just have to be in a certain mindset to create the sound. And a lot of stuff that it's called EBM is not really EBM. Like there's a lot of stuff out there which is labeled EBM, which is just, I don't want to say shit, but it's just shit.
I mean, I think that's true in a lot of different genres. I mean, one thing that I think about when I, you know, listen to the Skinny Puppy, like classics, like Too Dark Park and that kind of stuff, and even the early Hot Job stuff and things from that era, is that to me, they're like much more dirty, like, because there was so much like noise in the sampling and so many like layers, it sounds like. I think anybody, not nobody, but when you listen to like an industrial techno track or even something new that's EBM, all those layers of like grit and distortion wouldn't normally be there. Even because distortion doesn't sound like sampler distortion.
Well, actually, in the body mechanic library, they actually added certain noise layers to their construction kits, which is kind of nice. So you have kind of the feeling that it sounds recorded on analog gear with all these little cracks and stuff like that, you know. But also back in the 80s, it was this feel that I mean, you wanted to just piss off everyone with the music you created. And now you don't want to piss off everyone, you just want to get played in clubs, I think, and want to be popular. And so you just try to sound popular with creating whatever is popular. And you don't, I mean, Skinny Puppy, they created this in Vancouver, which is a Grim City, I guess. Then you have from 242, which had also, they never sounded really dirty. They sounded very specific also, in my opinion. But when we started as Howjob, we wanted to sound like Skinny Puppy. We wanted to sound as harsh as possible without using guitars in the beginning. A lot of screaming, a lot of metal samples and stuff like that. And right now, when I create this kind of music, sometimes I hesitate because I think I did it all before. Why am I doing this 30 years later and it just sounds exactly the same? Like, just in the end, I have much more stuff to my disposal. You know, I have this computer full with fucking synthesizers. It's crazy. And back then we had, like I said, a Juno, O1W, like a sequencing wave station, and a sampler, and that's all we needed back then. And now I have, like a world full of synthesizers to my disposal.
Right. It's not.
It's not easy, actually. It's not easy. It doesn't make it easier that you have so much stuff to work with.
Yeah, I mean, do you give yourself, like, what sorts of limitations will you give yourself?
I need a deadline. I need a deadline.
Yeah.
That's all. I just need a deadline. That's for example, we're working forever on the new Howjob album, and we actually need a deadline. And actually, the new Howjob stuff sounds older than the stuff we did in '92 because we use Dejan is obsessed now with field recording, and he samples his whole household. Like last week, he sent me a track with where he recorded his fridge and some other stuff. And our live member Manu, he owns a company called Exploding Shed, and they have this sound box, which is like a microphonic thing. And so there's a lot of little things that sound even more old school than we sounded back then. So yeah, I forgot the question. Sorry.
No, I'm glad you're talking about kind of more of the sound design stuff, because I wanted to talk a little bit about that and also take questions from the chat. So by the way, guys, we'll take your questions. Just drop them in the chat, and then we can ask Daniel Meyer, who's here with me. So, okay, first of all, your bandmate that's doing all the field recording, what is he to do that?
I think he has some kind of recording device. He told me, like a Marantz handheld recording thing, and then he just puts it. I think he also has the Studio One, and he just puts it in the sampler because it's easier to work for the both of us if we use the same DAW. We started, like I said, with a sequencing keyboard, and in '98 we used the Atari, and then we switched to Cubase, and we worked for 10 years with Cubase. And then in 2010 or so, or even earlier, I switched to Studio One. And then he switched also like 2 or 3 years ago because it makes working easier. But he is also, he does a lot of things with hardware. He has a project called DSX, which is techno basically, and he uses only hardware, no computer for this. He's obsessed with, he likes the Novation base station. He likes all the little Quark machines. Yeah, so that's basically, and the new Howjob stuff sounds, there's a lot of noise. It sounds like a mix of Neubauten meets 84 Depeche Mode kind of stuff with, it's just crazy. Which is, I mean, Depeche Mode 84 is basically Neubauten because they used a lot of their samples, I think.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, I've been like very blown away by like the range of how different all the different Howjob albums sound.
Yeah.
Like, and from what you're describing, it must be pretty crazy if you have people in the band that like are really also into synthesizers and really also into like recording techniques as well. To, kind of arrive at an agreement about what you're going to do.
Well, we have completely different views on music actually, because he's obsessed with analog and I work only in the box basically, but it works together somehow. You know, it's a good combination.
Yeah, sometimes that friction actually like is what makes a good band or like a good duo.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I forgot to mention at the top of this that you've actually made some sounds for Massive X,
Yes.
for the Mobius series, right? The Mobius
Yes.
Expand. And what's the other one? Oh, Mechanics.
Mechanics. I actually didn't make sounds. I just made the demos. There are 3 demos of mine on the Native Instruments sites, and I used their sounds. I used the sounds that they provided. Yeah.
So you played with you were playing the demo for those for the on Massive. I was wondering, I think, where like how much does sound design come into your process in terms of these different projects that you're working on? Like, is that something that you will spend like entire days on? Do you just deal with that within the context of the deadline of every individual track, or is that
I think it's constantly sound design. It's from the kick to the hi-hat. It's because that's what I did in the 90s. That's, I mean, it never stops, because when I have a certain idea for the song and I want it to sound very specific. And of course, I have these idols that I try to sound like sometimes, or that I try to achieve a certain level of sound design, like Richard Devine, for example. So I wanted to sound also the best as possible, and so I spent a lot of time. It's like a constant. It's the arranging comes in the end. First, it's sound design and mixing that goes hand in hand for me. Sometimes I mix in the end also when I'm not happy. I also do like a final mix in the end, but usually it goes hand in hand that I create sounds and mix all together.
What are some like tips that you would give? Because one thing, I mean, your stuff sounds, especially the Liebnick stuff, sounds so full and so banging. And I think sometimes, I mean, in every genre, but I think sometimes it's harder for newer producers to get to that full, like impactful sound, especially sometimes if there's a lot of elements going on.
Yeah.
What would you advice would you give somebody more in the beginning stages as far as like mixing, especially this style of music that you're working in?
If you do this style of music, you have certain certain tracks that you like, and you want to achieve that kind of sound. So you just basically copy what you like. And for the Liebknecht sound, I really liked all the David Carretta stuff, and Gesaffelstein, of course, when he started out, it was cool. And so in the beginning, I actually started this Liebknecht project, which I think I started 7 years ago. It sounded a lot like Gesaffelstein, and then it just evolved. I wanted to combine my roots with the techno stuff, so it evolved into its own thing. So the most important thing for club music is, of course, the drums. You know, the kick needs to be heavy. And so I use a lot of processing for the kick drum. For example, I use, I have let me show you. I have a chain for the drums, which is almost the same every time, which I actually got from Mode Selector. They use that same chain. They have this compressor, the API 2500, which just glues the drums together, and it just gives a nice punch. Let me show you the drums.
So this show us is on the drum bus.
Yeah. So I have neighbors and they will complain probably. So so without that, it just sounds a little flat without that compressor. So I put this on and it just glues it all together. And then this is another compressor that is on top that gives a little more high end, like the sizzle kind of sound.
What's that one called?
SPL Iron, it's called. It's like a mastering compressor, but I use it. I don't do mastering myself. I use it mostly for drums and bass lines to give it a little more sparkle and to have it a little more, to give the transient a little more sparkle.
It's just those two, and then you'll feed the kicks and the bass through that?
Yeah, sometimes the kicks I use, oh, sorry. Sometimes the kicks have their own, but for this track, they don't, just a little compression. Sometimes I use for the kicks, let me just pull this one up. I have certain chains that I save on here, and these are all my chains that I save.
Whoa.
And yeah, so for the kick, I use mostly, I think it's this one, Kickzilla 2. I usually start from a certain chain and then just change the sounds around. Let me show you the kick. This is now with the Kickzilla. The kick just sounds like this, which is nice. It's perfect. For the song, it was perfect. But then I used that gives a certain kind of rumble. It's called Kickzilla. The low air gives a nice deepness, depth, and also the SPL Iron for the transient. But I didn't use it for this kick because the kick was perfect already. I don't even know where I got it from.
What, like, are you just using a very small instance of those, or what do people need to know about, like, how you're using those compressors? Like, what are you turning up, or like, are you using
I just play with it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just play with it until it sounds good. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how it is.
We have some awesome questions in the chat.
Oh yeah, questions are good because I'm running.
There's so many, I gotta scroll back.
Okay.
Second here. Andre Winter says, Daniel, I love filter sweeps. They sound so special. What's your secret?
That's a joke. Andre is a friend of mine. I don't even know if it's him. Maybe there's a guy called Faderhead, or a band called Faderhead. He probably hijacked Andre's account because I always complain about Faderhead's filter sweeps. So Andre, I think Faderhead hijacked this account.
Let's see. What kind of bass VST did you use in Danzig? Not sure if it's a bass line or a synth, but it reminds me of Rammstein.
No, definitely not. I'm not a fan of Rammstein. It was probably one of Rinaldo's bass lines, and then just some additional stuff. Rinaldo uses a lot of the Evolver. He loves the Evolver. And for bass lines, I mostly use Diva from UHE. But I can't recall what it was in Danzig. I'm sorry.
IET Music would like to know about any tips for making the kick and the bass line glue together.
Yeah, like I like this track spacer from Waves Factory. That's like this sidechain thing that I usually use, and I just EQ. I don't use a lot of compression on bass lines. I mostly use EQ and distortion, actually. Let me show you what I use here. Oh, there's a lot of, let me show you the bass line. The kick and the bass together.
Oh, I think Buddy and Liebknecht says it was the Waldorf Pulse 2 in Danzig.
Ah, perfect. Good. Here, this is, yeah, so for this one, there's actually a lot on there. There's this tape simulation on there, which I also use a lot because it gives this kind of noisy, kind of old school kind of feel. Then there's compression, which I used before as sidechain. Then there's EQ, just a little bit. Oh, that's also good for sidechain, but as you can hear, it's not really on. Nicky Romero Kickstart, it's called. And the Devastator, which is a distortion thing, which gives also a very nice, which gives a nice like sizzle on top. And then, so I just use the track spacer to give the kick the space that it needs.
I've never tried that one, but I'll have to try that. It's the first time.
It's fantastic. It's because you can let me. It's not on there. Why is it not on there? That's crazy. So let me show you the track spacer. Now come on. Let me put it on here real quick. Track spacer. So this is it, and then I just route the kick to that. Wait a second, so come on. Where are we here? You can as you can see how it works, and what is good about this, you can choose the frequency that you cut out of the bass line. So this is fantastic too, and it was also only 19 euros or something like that, so kind of cheap.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one thing that, like, depending on which sidechain you're using, it's not always the easiest to figure out where
you
put that feature if you just want a certain frequency. Sometimes it's really like buried in there, I feel like. Also, that's cool you're using the Nicky Romero plugins, because I think actually some of these like plugins people don't mess with because they're like, oh, it's for EDM, and I don't make like big Dutch house, so why would I want that? But like, you can get
I don't really care. I use this LFO tool from Xfor, which is the deadmau5 company. I don't give a shit. It's a nice thing, you know. It's a nice tool to use.
Before we get on out of here, I know that you're working on an album for Adam X's Sonic Groove label.
Yeah, I don't know if we're supposed to say it, but yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
What are you allowed to say which alias that's going to be under?
It's going to be my name, Daniel Meyer. Yeah, so it's going to be the first Daniel Meyer album, which is actually I kind of copied that from Reese Falber from Frontline Assembly, because he did that a few years ago. Also released an album on Sonic Groove under his real name. So I basically do the same now, which is kind of lame, but that's what I do. Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I mean, I know it's annoying to be talking about an album while you're working on an album, but
it's not annoying. It's okay.
How do you envision, like, I mean, making stuff under your own name is like a different thing than having like this alias. So how are you looking at it as the whole album and like the palette for that album versus, you know, Liebknecht is very like, this is club tracks. This is you know, like industrial techno and electro, like club DJ oriented stuff. What is like a Daniel Meyer album?
Was because it's on Sonic Groove, it's also kind of club music, but I wanted to sound, I wanted to make it sound like the whole me, you know, like, I don't know how to explain that. For example, the first track that Adam loved was an old House Job demo that I transformed into an electro track. And in the end, it's got some Dejan harmonies, but a very modern groove. But overall, I wanted to sound like all the like awesome, like not awesome, all the elements that are known as me, you know, which is, I mean, I don't really know how to explain it, but I wanted to sound like me, and I think people will know when they hear it that it's Daniel Meyer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also Adam X has been listening to like, you know, this music since like the
Forever.
90s,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
even before, like, this is like a perfect place for it because I'm sure he understands the breadth
Oh yeah.
of
Oh yeah.
the breadth of your career and like the meaning behind all these different sounds or like waves that you're going to hear in the record.
I actually met him 21 years ago, and we DJed together, and he was obsessed with like X Marks the Pet Rock and stuff like that. And I was just, back then I was so out of that scene. I was doing drum and bass and stuff like that. So it was really strange to have this techno guy being obsessed with this music that was so old school to me. But I kind of got the sparkle from him back for that kind of music, because he was. He showed me stuff that I actually never heard before, you know, because he had a huge collection of all this vinyl, and there was stuff that I was more into this Canadian stuff, like Skinny Puppy Frontline Assembly, and he just loved all kinds of EBM industrial, and there was he showed me stuff from Clinic that I never heard before, because I was never so much into Clinic, and then I found my love for Clinic actually because of Adam, which is kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, it's a really like wild world, and also depending on what country you grew up in, like access to things might have been different back when there wasn't like everybody putting everything on the internet. Like there's records I didn't hear till years later, and I was like,
exactly.
Oh, but I've heard them when I was, you know, 12 in the 90s, like.
And I think actually when you are so involved in this kind of music, you also maybe don't oversee some stuff that you maybe you heard the song before, then and you didn't like it, so you just erase that band out of your sight, you know, and then all of a sudden another, like someone plays you a song and it's that same band and it's fucking awesome, and you just didn't listen to that band because you didn't like one song, which is kind of stupid in the end. Yeah, but that's sometimes how it is, I guess.
We've all done it. Okay, Dirk asked about Alan Wilder, and like I think he's a genius, and you probably get asked this all the time, but like what was the creative process like, or the collaboration process like, of working with Alan Wilder, who is Recoil and also used to be a part of Depeche Mode?
Yeah. There was not much of a creative process. He contacted me on Facebook one day, which is really strange. I mean, first of all, whenever I was asked back then in interviews who I would work with, his name was the first that popped up, because I started as a fan of Depeche Mode back in 83 or 84. So he contacted me on Facebook because my friend Albert from Spain, he's a promoter there. He had this Recall gig set up, and he picked him up from the airport, and my Architect album was playing, and Adam heard it, he loved it, and so he contacted me on Facebook and asked me if I wanted to basically join the tour, and then he thought it would be a good introduction to his fans if I would remix this track once, and he gave me the stems, which were all over the place. I think Paul Candle just transferred the stems from DAT to digital, to hardware, to a computer, and they were all over the place. It was, I think, Pro Tools files, so they were all separate. The stereo files were separate into mono channels and stuff like that. It was like a lot of files, like 80 or 90 stems, so crazy. And then he just gave me all the freedom that I wanted, and he wanted just one remix, but in the end I did 3, and he loved it, and he released this. I think via Mute actually as a digital release, and it was just a dream come true, you know, to work with this man. It was fantastic.
I mean, it's like you don't want to deal with 90 stems, but if it's Depeche Mode, you will.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And then we actually worked on a Depeche Mode remix together, which was also crazy. And I did a stupid mistake. We were on tour when we did this, and he did the main mix basically, and I did another version. And he told me that he didn't want my version to be like a pop mix. He wanted to be as crazy as possible. He wanted me to chop up the vocals and stuff like that. So I did that, and we were on our way to San Diego, and I cleaned up my hard drive and I deleted that remix that I was working on for 3 weeks.
oh my God.
So I had to start from scratch. It was so embarrassing, you know. We were sitting in the car together, and I had to admit to him, I was sitting in the front, he was in the back, and I had to admit to him that I just deleted 3 weeks of work. Shame on me.
Well, I think that's like a teachable moment in itself.
Yeah. Always have a backup. Always have a backup.
Backup, and also like everyone I know has done this, but like don't be on tour and not at home and then decide that you're gonna like clean your whole computer.
Yeah, no,
or like,
no, don't do that.
like at least back it up if you're gonna do that.
Yeah,
because
yeah, exactly.
it's like a Murphy's Law, like it will fail.
Yeah.
Like
now I know better. I do like a backup. I have actually 3 or 4 backups of everything right now.
yeah, you got to. You're working with the archive over there.
Yeah, yeah.
So what can people, first of all, the remix that you showed us earlier, the Aesthetic Perfection, that doesn't have a release date yet, right?
He just said May, because he just released today the single Dead Zone, and he releases a single every month now. So the remix I did is for the single for May.
Cool. If you guys missed that or any part of this chat and you want to go back, by the way, it's archived on the Native Instruments Instagram channel. You just hit the little TV icon, and then you can rewatch what we talked about before, and also the new remix that we previewed as well. Okay, one more question before you get out of here, and this one comes from Jorge Vasquez, who would like to know, what are your favorite plugins when you're making techno?
Well, Track Spacer for sure, for the sidechain thing. It's very important for techno. Yeah, that's hard. Massive is very good for the FM bass lines. I think every plugin can do anything right now. It's yeah. There's no specific stuff that I use. I mean, I use samples a lot, so I would say like at least 60% of my tracks are based on samples, and I just tweak the hell out of them. And sometimes I don't, like you heard on the kick drum. It was just perfect the way it was. But I like the UHE stuff for bass lines. The Diva, I like Diva a lot. The Massive for bass lines. The Massive X, actually, I just got into it because of the demos that I did, and it's perfect for techno. Yeah, what else? Of course, the classics, 808 and 909. I use the Roland Cloud stuff, which sounds good enough, I think. When I use this stuff, I usually have this tape machine modulation on it, so it gives this little grits and this little noise. Yeah, I think this is essential to have some classic sounds in it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. You can't get away from the 909, especially
yeah.
in techno. And why would you want to?
Yeah.
Just to let people know also that there are a bunch of expansions for Massive X and little extras that are rolling out this month and next month too. So
cool.
If you guys are massive fans, definitely look out for those. There's a lot of cool new like sounds and just crazy stuff in those expansions from what I've heard so far. I did have one last question, which was,
Yeah.
for your drums, like, do you typically prefer to just have the samples on the like DAW screen, or do you put everything in MIDI and then play it?
No, it's actually just drag and drop the samples, either in the DAW or in the sampler, and then just play with it, play with it, program it, yeah.
Cool.
And then it's just and then in the end I just play with the grooves also. For example, in the wait, let me open this real quick again. In the Dust remix, I have this little. It sounds like a little glitch. Let me. The kick makes a little glitch. Wait, where is it? Show you. Yeah, there. For example, this comes very natural. I just feel that sometimes it needs a little break from the 4 to the floor, and then I do this little Stolpern. In German, it's called Stolpern. I think stumbling. It's called. It's stumbling. I don't know. Yeah, Stolpern.
Yeah, to like kind of mix it up.
Yeah. Just not to. Maybe it's not wrong. It's not right because most of the techno tracks have a like the 4 to the floor goes all the way through, but I like to mix it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that you're doing a lot with like the sort of having things in a 16th or like the kind of time that something is like stuttering in, and it's giving
exactly. Yeah.
Whether I heard some of that in vocals and like the kicks.
I like to program. I like to program a lot. I like to like just mix it up a lot because I work on this stuff like 12, 15, 16 hours a day, and I also get bored with it. So I like to entertain myself mostly with what I do, and that's why I like to just mix it up.
It's important. It's important to keep yourself entertained.
Yeah.
During the long hours at the computer. Well,
Exactly.
Daniel, thank you so much for joining me here on Real Talk and for dropping all these little.
I have to. Can I say just something? Alex asked me to mention the releases that are coming up, which is, if you don't mind me talking about it, the Mechatronica Liebknecht EP was just out, and which goes really well on Beatport. I'm actually surprised. The Black Asteroid remix.
My dog Private Pics playing it on Horror the other day.
That's cool. Yeah, the Black Asteroid remix was out on Aufnahme und Wiedergabe last week. I have a release on Science Cult, an EP also with Liebknecht, and the Aesthetic Perfection remix comes in May. So it's going to be a good year for Liebknecht. And thank you, Rinaldo, for providing me with awesome sounds.
For sure. I love that new Liebknecht stuff. It sounds so good. I'm gonna like have to just go outside and make my Cybertreffen.
Yeah. Oh, please don't.
I mean, the house nightclub is like getting tired.
Yeah.
But anyway, I love that stuff, and it sounds like we have a new How Job album to look forward to at some point as well.
Yes. By the way, all the old How Job stuff was just released on Spotify. We were a little late with that, so all the stuff is now out on Spotify also. Amazing.
Well, if you guys want to find out more, follow Daniel Meyer. It's Daniel_Meyer, MYER, or you can find it on the NI main page as well. And Daniel,
if people have follow-up questions, I see a lot of questions popping up now. They can just write me a PM or something like that. I answer everything. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great pleasure talking to you, and see you soon, I hope.
Yes, thank you.
Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye.